Srimad Bhagvatam this morning. We're going to read text 32 and probably, if we can get down to 32, probably 33. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narotamam. Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Nashtaprayeshabhaddeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati nashtati Krishne swadamo bhagate dhamagyanadihi saha kalo nashta desham esha purana kodolodita Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'll read the Sanskrit synonyms and translation and Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purport. The Uttama Shloka Padabja Vistaram Prema Shulesha Upamehayam Mahu Premo Parudha Kila Varda Nigamo Naiva Sakatam Prasamidhitum Chiram. The He Uttama Shloka of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pada Abja, of the lotus seat, Vishnaram, the resting place, Prema Ashru, of tears of pure love, Leishai, by drops, Upame Hayan, moistening, Muhu, again and again, Prema Uparudha, choked with love, Akila, all, Varna, of the letters, Nirgama, the coming out, Na, not Eva, indeed. Ashakat was able to come unto him, Prasiditum, to offer prayers, Chiram, for a long time. Translation: with tears of love and affection, Chitraketu repeatedly moistened the resting place of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Because his voice was choked with ecstasy, for considerable time he was unable to utter any of the letters of the alphabet to offer the Lord suitable prayers. Purport: all the letters of the alphabet and words constructed by those letters are meant for offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj Chitraketu had the opportunity to offer prayers to the Lord by composing nice verses from the letters of the alphabet. But because of his ecstasy for considerable time, he could not join those letters to offer prayers to the Lord. As stated in Srimad Bhagvatam, Idam hipam sas tapasa shutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayo avichutorta kavibir narupito yaduttama shloka gunanavardhanam. Learners, if one has scientific, philosophical, political, economic, or any other abilities and wants perfection in his knowledge, he should offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by composing first-class poetry or engaging his talents in the service of the Lord. Chitraketu wanted to do this, but he was unable because of loving ecstasy. Therefore, he had to wait for a considerable time before he could offer prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadabhayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vande Nantad Putashayam Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhum Nichopi Yat Prasadat Sad Bhakti Shastra Pavartaka Nityananda Maham Nomi Sarvananda Karam Panam Harinama Panam Devam Avaduta Shiromani Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannataya Te Namaha Taptakan Shanagaurangi Radhe Bindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Bindaito Siddhve Priyayate Shavasya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kopatubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So what Maharaj Chitraketu is experiencing is our objective in life, to have that kind of feeling for the Supreme Lord. It can't be imitated. There are actors, of course, who can cry on cue. They'll remember something sad in their life and tears will come out. Or also some Prakrita Sahajiya type people, they can also cry. But if you examine their life, those are, we say in English, crocodile tears. They're not real tears. They're not tears of love of God. To have the emotional experience that Chitraketu Maharaj is having, but it's to be pure devotee. We pray for that. Lord Chaitanya taught us to pray, Nayanam Galada Shudaraya Badanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakaya Nichitam Vapukada Tabanama Prahane Bhavishyati. He's saying, Bhavishyati, when will that day come? When tears of love flow from my eyes, my voice is choked up, and the hairs of my body stand on end. This is called Ashtasattuka Vikar. The 8 symptoms that are symptomatic, that indicate one's ecstatic love for God. And that can never be imitated. One has to go through the process. Foremost of all, anartha nibriti. One has to become free from lust, greed, anger, envy, fear, malice, all the inauspicious things, inauspicious qualities that we're born with to one degree or another. Everyone is afflicted by these anarthas. And if one wants to genuinely experience love of God, if one wants to see the tears flow out of love of God, not sentimentalism or imitationism, but genuine prema, there's a price to pay. And the preliminary price is that one has to become free from anarthas. Because if our heart is covered with anarthas, if our heart is afflicted, if our heart is dirty, how can we experience this love of God? It's not possible. It's impossible. One can get special benediction from the Lord, that's true. But in general, the process is laid out for us, chalked out for us. In Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it begins with faith. One has to have some faith. By faith, one associates with devotee, sadhu sangha. And by sadhu sangha, devotee becomes inspired. He'll take up the process, get initiated, become initiated, take up the process of chanting, following the instructions of spiritual master, becoming initiated by spiritual master. And by that process, anartha nibriti, then we begin the long road, relatively long road, depending on one's previous life's activities and one's conditioning. Srila Prabhupada explains that a spark may fall on dry grass and immediately there's flames. It may fall on moist grass and it may take some time before a fire is experienced. Or it may fall on wet grass and be extinguished. So according to one's Purva Punya, his Sukriti, one's progress in spiritual life either takes off like a rocket because he's performed many things in a previous life, or it takes off slowly. But the process is the same. The demand for anartha nivriti, the prerequisite of anartha nivriti to experience love of God is required. We have to pass through anartha nivriti, become nishta, become fixed, completely fixed in the process of sadhana, and then there'll be a glimmering of ruchi, of love of God, the preliminary feeling of then asakti, then bhava, prema. Love of God is not a cheap thing. There's a process, just like if one wants to graduate from college with a PhD, there's a process to do that. You can't just go to a diploma factory, pay some money, and get a piece of paper that says you're a doctor, a PhD. This is cheating. One has to go through the process. He has to go to grade school, high school, college, postgraduate, doctorate. There's a system that requires commitment. It requires hard study. It requires many things to actually become a bona fide doctor. So in the same way, in a similar way, if one wants to become pure devotee, there's a process. We can't jump over. We have to follow the process and be patient. Utsahan nischayat dharyat. That karma pavartanat. That karma pavartanat means there's a process. We have to rise early in the morning, hear Srimad Bhagvatam, chant the holy name, associate with devotees, worship the deity, take only prasadam, control senses. This is the preliminary process, Vaidhi Bhakti. We can't jump from Vaidhi immediately to the symptoms of love of God, which is our prayojana. We want this. We want love of God. This is why are we practicing sadhana? Because we expect one blessed day to come to a stage where these symptoms manifest, where love of God, the heart melts in ecstasy, love of God. It's by hearing His name. One feels emotional attachment. One feels separation from Krishna. Jugayitam nimeshena chakshusha prabhishayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahenam. Mahaprabhu taught us this, that feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be thousands of years. The whole world is void. Shunya, everything's zero, meaningless, useless. Why Govinda virahenam? Do we feel that? I don't feel that. We have many feelings of separation from sense gratification, separation from good food, from prestige, from position, from money, from things of this world, mobile phones, televisions, cars, bank balance, clothes. If we lose any of these things, we feel separation. But do we feel separation from Krishna? Unfortunately, no. But by this process, these ecstatic emotional symptoms will come. Not just symptoms, experiences, concrete experience of love of God. And as we progress in spiritual life, we may see a little glimmer, a little hope, an experience that encourages us in Krishna Bhakti. And we should hope for those days. But the basic principle is this, that there's a process. You can't just jump and immediately become ecstatic in Krishna consciousness. One has to go through this system. Prabhupada goes on and he quotes verse from Srimad Bhagvatam, first canto, 5th chapter, verse 22. I copied his translation. He gives a general translation in the purport here, but I'll read the exact translation from Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's translation. Quote, learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. So everything for Krishna. Prabhupada would quote this verse frequently, encouraging devotees that whatever field of activity you're expert in, if you're a great scholar, then use your scholarship to promote the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. If you're a yogi, a tapasvi, then by your austerity, and which will generate realization, teach Krishna consciousness, study the Vedas, promote the Vedas, teach sacrifice, chanting of hymns, charity. They all culminate in the descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry, Uttama Shloka. So the principle is that Srila Prabhupada explained is that one should engage all his talents in the service of the Lord. Why should we do that? Because it is his ability. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that Rasoham apsukonteya prabhasi sashishoriya pranava sarvavedishu shabde ke paurusham nishu. That I'm the ability in man. That whatever ability a person has, where does it come from? Is it something that we can lay claim to? We see sometimes in music, for example, a person, a young child, sits down at a piano, and within a matter of months, he's playing high-class classical music, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach. He's playing very technical uh, piano concertos expertly. How did that happen? It's a blessing from the Lord. He's taking up from where he left off in his last life. It's a blessing of the Lord that he deserves. But the point is, whatever we get, whether it's expertise in music or in literature or in science or in business, whatever ability we have, it should be engaged in the service of the Lord. And that will lead us to liberation. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yat koroshi yadashasi yashtahosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kuntaya matkuruswa madarpanam. That whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer and give away, whatever austerity you may perform, madarpanam, offer it to me. Why should we offer to Krishna? Because it's his. He is the ability in man. He is the light and the sun and the moon. He's the sound and ether, the taste of water. What isn't Krishna? In our experience of life, we go through like blind men, ignorant of the eternally present, the eternal presence of the Lord. He's present everywhere. Adantarasta paramanuchayantarastam. He's within the atom. Where isn't Krishna? Where isn't Krishna acting in our life? A pure devotee sees nothing but Krishna. Prabhupada gave an example. He said, just like a mother, when she sees an article of their child's clothing, she immediately thinks of the child. Why? Because of love. The article of clothing isn't the child, but because it's related with the child, she feels love, remembering her child. So in a similar way, wherever we look, the pure devotee sees nothing but Bhagavat Bhava Matmana. All he sees is Krishna. When he sees a tree, he doesn't see cellulose and leaves and bark and flowers and seeds. He sees Krishna. Here is my Lord's incredible, astonishing technical expertise in creating a tree with roots that are sucking water and minerals from the earth and traveling up the stem and inconceivably making leaves and flowers and delicious sweet fruits. How is it happening? Devotee only sees Krishna behind the whole show. That is the vision that we want to come to. And if we come to that vision, we'll all automatically want to engage everything in his service, offer everything to him because it's his. It's his binna prakriti, his 8 separated material energies. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, and ego. This is the sum total of everything we see. We may see concrete and steel and glass and copper and rubber. We see the ingredients, the combination of those elements. But if we break it all down, it's nothing more than this binna prakriti, the 8-fold separated material elements of the Lord. In our own existence, our own body, there's nothing but earth and fire and air, these things. Why is our body warm? Because there's fire present. How are we digesting food? By fire. Krishna says, I'm that fire of digestion, that heat in our body by which food is digested and by which the nutrients are distributed throughout our body. There's fire in our body. There's water in our body. Blood is wet. Our mouth is wet. Tears come. Liquids come from our body because there's water present. Air is present. We burp, we pass air. Air is present. Mind is also present. Subtle body is also there. Buddhi, mana, hankar. This is also Krishna's separated material energy. If we get to the next verse, we can talk about that some more. About Buddhi, mana, hankar. Next verse, he says, Aparayamitastam prakriti viddhi me param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. Says, beyond this material energy, apara prakriti means the living being, the soul, the jiva. By the combination of these material elements In connection with the jiva, the whole creation takes place in the material world. Big skyscrapers, airplanes, cell phones, TVs, factories, cars, bridges. The entire experience of the material world takes place by the combination of these 8 separated material energies and the jiva soul, who desires to enjoy those separate material energies. So if we engage everything we get, everything that comes to us by our karma, but Kuruswamadarpanam, if we offer to Krishna, something very wonderful happens. He says in the next verse, Shubha Shubha Palarivam Mokshase Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upaisasi. He says if we offer everything to Krishna, our words, Karmana Manasa Gira, our words, our activities, our work, whatever we do, if we offer to him, then Shubha Shubha Palarivam. There's no more Shubh Ashubh. There's no more piety or impiety. Everything's for Krishna. He's the enjoyer of everything. And there's no karma. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. Vimukto Mam Upaisasi. Says you're liberated. If everything is for Krishna, we're not connected to the material world anymore. Jagartat kamanonyata lokayam karma bandhana. No more karma bandhana. We're not bound to the material world because everything's for Krishna. All our activities, our words, our work, everything for Krishna. And vimokto mam upaisasi. Krishna said, he told Arjuna, you're liberated and mam upaisasi, you come back to me. You come back to Godhead. What more we want in life? So this is a simple formula. And it begins with engaging our talents in the service of the Lord. Because who is the possessor of those talents? Where did they come from? Why is there a Virat Kohli or a Mukesh Ambani or an Albert Einstein? What is the difference between Albert Einstein and a fool? Between a crippled man and Virat Kohli? Between a beggar and Mukesh Ambani? Only by the blessing of the Lord. So a devotee who acknowledges that, who is filled with gratitude in his life, is liberated from this world. Because by the impetus of appreciation, that he offers something to Krishna. Let me offer this to you. At least that is the consciousness of a pious man. Of course, we understand the world is also full of greedy, lusty people. They make money and think, yes, my money, it is my money. Money, 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 brighter than sunshine, sweeter than honey, money, money, money. That's all they think about. But a pious person is filled with gratitude. Krishna is so kind. What hasn't he given me? My home, my family, my bank balance, my position, my very life. A pious person is filled with gratitude. Therefore, out of that gratitude, he thinks, what can I do for Krishna? He's done everything for me. What can I do for Krishna? So he thinks, Madhkurishva Varnapanam. Let me offer to him. Let me make him partner in everything I do. If I'm working and making money, let me give something to Krishna. If I have the ability to speak or worship or inspire other people, let me do that for Krishna. If I have family, let me raise family in the consciousness of Krishna. Everything for the service of the Lord. Madhkurishva Madarpanam. And then what is the result? Mame Vaishasi. You come back to me. Bhakti is so beautiful, so natural. We live our life as it's meant to be, and we simply make Krishna a partner in our life. And as Prabhupada says here, engaging his talents in the service of the Lord. And this is the result. If we engage our talents in the service of the Lord, if we engage our money in the service of the Lord, if we engage our words in the service of the Lord, if we engage our families in the service of the Lord, our possessions in the service of the Lord, we go back to the Lord at the end of life. Such a natural, beautiful thing, bhakti. Bhakti is described in Shastra as infallible. The example is given of a person running through a forest at night. He can't see anything, but he's running, but he'll never trip. He'll never run to a tree. He's running. This is the example of bhakti. Someone who runs like this never trips and falls. Why is that? How does it happen? Because Krishna is taking us back to him. Krishna is picking us up from the ocean of material existence by his mercy. It's not by our austerity. It's not by our intellect. It's not by our wealth. It's not by our genius or whatever small ability we have. It's by his mercy. So we have to attract that mercy by this beautiful process of bhakti, by making him a partner, where we offer everything to him, mat purusva, manarpanam, and we engage everything in the service of the Lord. And by that, these feelings will come. The fruit of that, before we're liberated, these ecstatic moods that are described here of Maharaj Chitraketu will come to us. That Nayanam Galata Shudar, our eyes will be decorated with tears of love. Not fake tears, not crocodile tears, not sentimental tears, sahajiya tears, but heart-melting tears of love and gratitude for the Lord. Does anyone have any comment or question on this verse, or shall we move on to the next verse? Any comments or question on this verse? So we can move on to the next verse. Tatasamadaya manomanishaya labhasa etat parilabdha bhasa niyamya sarvendriya bhaya vartanam jagad gurum satvata shastra vigraham. Translations. Tata, thereafter. Samadaya, controlling. Mana, the mind. Manishaya, by his intelligence. Babhasa, spoke. Etat, this. Pratilabdha, recovering. Vak, speech. Aso, that one. King Chitraketu. Niyamya, controlling. Sarva Indriya, all of the senses. Bhaya, external. Vartanam, the wandering. Jagat Gurum, who is the spiritual master of everyone? Satvata, of devotional service. Shastra, of the holy scriptures. Vigraham, the personified form. Translation. Thereafter, by controlling his mind with his intelligence, and thus restricting his senses from external engagements, he recovered suitable words with which to express his feelings. Thus he began offering prayers to the Lord, who is a personification of the Holy Scriptures, the Sattvata Samhitas, like the Brahma Samhita and the Narada Pancharatra, and who is the spiritual master of all. He offered his prayers as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One cannot offer prayers to the Lord with mundane words. One must become spiritually advanced by controlling the mind and senses. Then he can find suitable words to offer in prayers to the Lord. Quoting the following verse from the Padma Purana, Srila Sanatana Goswami forbids us to sing any song not sung by authorized devotees. Avaishnava Mukod Girnam Putam Harikatamritam Shravanam Naiva Kartabyam Sarpochishta Yatapaya. The words or songs of a person not fixed in Vaishnava behavior, not strictly following the rules and regulations, and not chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, should not be accepted by pure devotees. The words Sattvata Shastra Vigraham indicate that the Satchidananda body of the Lord can never be accepted to be made of Maya. Devotees do not offer prayers to the Lord in an imaginary form. The existence of the Lord's form is supported by all Vedic literatures. There is a very important understanding mentioned in this verse, in the translation, and word for word also. It says here, controlling his mind with his intelligence and thus restricting his senses from external engagements. And a few words, Bhagavatam is telling us what is the process for making progress in spiritual life. Because controlling the mind and senses is a must. Uncontrolled minds and senses drag us to hell. They're described as Bhagavatam says, Gita says, Trivadam narakasidam dwaram nashanavatmana kama krodistala labdas tasmat etat tayam tyajet. That one must overcome lust, anger, and greed because they are gates to hell. Lust, anger, greed. Gates to hell. are all the result of uncontrolled senses. So controlling the mind is a must, and there's a process to do that. The first step to control the mind is to understand what it is, to experience, to be able to be introspective enough to reflect on one's own existence. What is my mind? We can reflect on our body. That's easy to do. We look at it. Oh, this is my foot. This is my knee. This is my fingers. We can reflect on what is the body, the gross understanding of the self. We can understand I have lungs, I have a stomach, I have all different internal organs, a heart, a brain, lungs, liver, spleen, kidneys. All the parts of my body are there. We can understand that. But subtly, what is the subtle body? Subtle body means buddhi, mana, hankar. So it's mentioned here to control the mind by the intelligence. This is the process of controlling the mind. Cannot be able to control the mind in any other way. And it's a must. Bhagavatam says, Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinshana, Sarvais Gunai Tatu Samasate Sara. Harav Avaktasya Kuto Mahadguna Mano Retena Sato Dhavato Bihi. What is the difference between a devotee who develops all the good qualities of the demigods and a materialistic rascal sense enjoyer? The mind is controlled. Manoratena. Manoratena means the chariot of the mind. A non-devotee is carried on the chariot of his own mind, which means his mind is always desiring to enjoy through the senses. I want to see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, and enjoy this material world, carried by the chariot of the mind. And what is the difference between this person and devotee? Devotee understands, I have to control my mind. So the first principle of controlling the mind is to identify what it is. Where do we feel happiness? Where do we feel anger, lust, greed, fear, malice, envy? Where do all those things live? They live in our mind. They actually have nothing to do with the self whatsoever. Let's say, for example, I'm angry with somebody. He said something to me, or he pushed me, or he did some offensive act, and now I'm angry at him and I want to get even. Where is the soul angry? Is the Atma angry? Not at all. That anger lives in the mind. So if we want to overcome the pushings of the mind, we have to understand first what it is. That first principle is, I have nothing to do with my mind. I'm being dragged by my mind and senses. Mind is a central object of all the senses. It seeks gratification through the senses. So unless we identify what is the mind and understand that it's completely separate from the self, how will we want to control it? Most people think, I am greedy, I am lusty, I am angry. They identify with the mind. Identifying with the body is a less difficult process. We can look and say, this is my hand. I don't say, it is I hand. Am I a finger? Am I a fingernail? Am I a nose, an ear, a foot? That is my body. And I, the self, am separate from this collection of organs and skin and fat and blood and hair and bones. This is not a difficult thing to understand. But to disengage oneself from identifying with the mind is much more difficult. That I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm lusty, I'm envious. Are you really? Not at all. Asangahyaya Purusha, the Purush, the soul proper, is none of those things. He's not implicated in the material energy in any way, except Daiviyeshu Gunamaye Mama Maya Duratyaya. By the power of Krishna's Maya, the fragmental spirit soul, who is qualitatively as good as God and should have no ability to be pushed under by the modes of material nature, has surrendered his nature to Maya due to his will, and he becomes overwhelmed by Lord's energy. Mama Maya, Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. The process is to become free. So first principle, understand what is the mind. Second thing, understand how it's controlled by the intelligence. Mind's business, chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vair eva sadushkaram. Arjuna told Krishna that it's very, very difficult to control my mind. Balavadridam, very powerful, very obstinate, difficult control, more difficult to control than the wind. So is it easy thing to do? Not easy thing to do, but there's a process. And the process means understanding what is the mind and what is the intelligence. The intelligence is meant to control the mind because the intelligence is higher than the mind. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we find the verse, Indriyani paranyahur indriyabhya paramana manasastu paro buddhir yo buddhir paratastusa yo buddhir paratastusa. Above the gross material body is the subtle body, the mind. Above the mind is the intelligence. Above the intelligence is the soul proper. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to mind, body, and senses, one should control the higher self by the lower. One should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus remain fixed in consciousness. Evam buddha param buddha samstam yatmanam atmana jahi shatram mahabaho kama rupa darasadam. We slay the sinful enemy, kama, lust, by understanding this, that lust lives in the mind. How to control it? With the intelligence. And how do we make the intelligence strong? Because frequently the senses overwhelm our intelligence. We know that doing this is not good for me. It will not make me happy. It's against the principles of Krishna consciousness. But we're dragged to do it when the mind is weak and overcomes the intelligence. Mind and senses overcome the intelligence. Happens all the time. But how to maintain control of the mind and senses to make the intelligence strong, and there's a process for that, and that is hearing. We have to hear and practice Krishna consciousness. We have to hear what is the mind, what is the Atma, what is Prakriti, what is Pradhan, what is spiritual, what is material, who am I? Unless we're fixed in those principles, unless we have realization of those principles, then how will we control the mind and senses? Not possible. We have to be very fixed in our intelligence, what is what. And then we can beat when the mind suggests, why don't you do this? No, I'm not doing that. This is not good for me. I reject it. We reject based on the strength of our intelligence. So intelligence becomes strong by hearing. We have to hear regularly from Shastra. We have to hear regularly holy name of the Lord to purify our mind and intelligence, to become detached from the objects of senses. This is the process of controlling the mind and restricting senses from external engagements. Senses are meant for Krishna. This is the first principle of bhakti. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate Sarvupadi Vinirmuktam Tatparatena Nirmalam Rishikesha. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. What is bhakti? Bhakti Uchate. First principle, Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam. Upadi means designations. I am this body, I am this mind, I am black, white, yellow, brown, tall, short, skinny, fat, Indian, Chinese, Australian, American, Japanese. These are all upadis. They're material designations that have nothing to do with the soul. So the first principle is to become free from material designations, that I am a product of matter. And Rishikesha, Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam, to use our Rishik, our senses, in the service of the master of the senses, and become free from external engagements, using matter in the service of the proprietor of matter, using our senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. Rishikesh, Lord is called Rishikesh. He's the master of our senses. Our disease is that we think senses are meant for me. It's my tongue, and I will give it anything it desires. We say, Sharira abidyaja jotindriya tahikal. Prabhupada translate tahikal as black snake. If we're bitten by the black snake of desire to eat unoffered food, then we get dragged down to material life. Tongue is the most important sense in our head, because with tongue we vibrate, and with tongue we taste. So devotional life begins with that. Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavat Grayam Indriyai. Sevan Mukhe Hijivado Swayameva Sparatira. We get liberation, we get understanding, we get progress in spiritual life through our tongue. By vibrating transcendental sound and by tasting prasadam. Swayameva Sparatira. Spurti means revelation, realization comes from engaging the tongue. But if we think my tongue is just for my pleasure and I'll eat anything that it desires, then the tongue will drag us to hell. Similarly, all the senses are like that. Prabhupada explains, just like the deer, it likes to hear beautiful music. So the hunter goes to the forest with his bow and arrow, and he brings a flute, and he plays the flute. And as the deer is transfixed, listening to the beautiful sound, the hunter pierces his body with an arrow, and the deer dies. A fish likes to eat tasty food. He's always foraging for food. So the fisherman puts a piece of bait on the hook, and because of the fish's uncontrolled tongue, he's taken out of the hook pierces his mouth and is dragged out of the water. An elephant is very attached to sexual pleasure. So they train a female elephant to lure the male elephant towards a pit. He falls into the pit, and he's forced into bondage the rest of his life because he can't control his genital. So if we analyze all the senses are explained to be like 5 wives. Oh, spend time with me, spend time with me, spend time with me. They're making demands. But devotee understands senses are meant for Krishna. We see the beautiful form of the Lord. We see other devotees. We hear the holy name. We hear beautiful bhajans. We chant beautiful bhajans. We use our tongue to sing, to chant the holy name. We taste Krishna prasadam. We smell the flowers, the garlands, the agarbati offered to the Lord. And this way we engage all our senses in service of the Lord, and the senses become our friends because they're connected with Krishna. They drag us back to Krishna rather than dragging us to repeated birth and death in the material world. So the whole principle of being able to do that requires, as it says here, manishaya, that by our intelligence we control the mind. If we don't do that, then we're dragged to material life. Such an important thing to understand, controlling the mind. Mano-ritena asato davato bihi. And when the purport, Srila Prabhupada also makes a very important point, that we have to offer prayers to the Lord, not with mundane words. The recommendation is to study the prayers of advanced devotees, of Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Shiva's prayers, all different prayers of Prabhupada's prayers. There's a beautiful, beautiful book that made all Srila Prabhupada's prayers and poetry. And if you study that, you'll simply become transfixed and so appreciative of the pure devotional sentiment, pure devotional outpouring of Srila Prabhupada's heart. So we should study these prayers, not make up our prayers. We can express ourselves, like it's mentioned, Srila Prabhupada mentions about Prahlad Maharaj. He said, just a young boy, how can a young boy glorify the Lord? But his prayers were accepted because they're prayers of pure devotion. They're not asking the Lord, you please do something for me. Make you trying to make Lord our servant. We want to be servants of the Lord, not make him our servant. But typically all over the world, people are praying to the Lord, you do this for me. I need a raise at work. Please heal this person. Please give me money. Please give me position in society. Please solve this problem for me. Everyone comes to the Lord with their problems. But who comes to the Lord saying, please, I want to serve you. Oh Lord, oh energy of the Lord, please engage me in your loving devotional service. Who is that person? That's the pure devotee. And these are the proper prayers. And he quotes here from Padma Purana that we should not hear Putam Harikatamritam. That Harikatha is very nice. Someone may say, why just hear Harikatha anywhere? Listen anywhere, because it's pure. But Sanatana Goswami is quoting and emphasizing Sarpo Chishta Yatapaya. Just like milk is accepted as very good, nutritious food. But if it's touched by the lips of a serpent, it becomes poisonous and it will kill you. So we should monitor what we're hearing, what we're praying. If we hear anything, if we accept any words as transcendental, if we accept any words as beneficial, we may find ourselves in trouble. Especially as ISKCON devotees, we should be chaste to the words of Srila Prabhupada. I was very disturbed to see one of our sannyasis visiting Radhakund Babaji. Why do you want to hear from this person? What can he do for you? Any devotee who's been around for 10 years can answer the same questions. Why you come and lick the shoes of the Babajis? We don't need them. Everything, Prabhupada gave us complete package for progress in spiritual life. Everything is there in Prabhupada's books. Someone who says they're not, simply has not studied Prabhupada's books carefully. There's more in Prabhupada's books than you can digest in many lifetimes. So we should hear from proper source, not from Avaishnavas, even from Vaishnavas outside of our Sampradaya, because they have a different conception of spiritual life. It's not all the same. It's not all one. We have a specific understanding of bhakti given to us by Srila Prabhupada and our own Guru Parampara, and it's not deficient in any way. We don't need the advice of people outside of our Parampara, outside of our Sangha. We should associate with Sajatiya. Sajatiya means those persons who are of your own understanding, of your own family, of your own Guru Parampara. So we should hear from those persons, not hearing from anybody and anybody, because they have a big tilak or jata, or have big tulsi mala, they're renounced Babaji, they're big sannyasi. Hear from those devotees who repeat the words of the founder Acharya of ISKCON, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. And you remain safe, you'll never be confused. Everything is there in Prabhupada's books. Otherwise, it may appear to be very nutritious milk, but if it's touched by the lips of a serpent and you drink it, you will die. So Prabhupada writes in the purport here, we should not hear words or song of a person not fixed in Vaishnava behavior, not strictly following the rules and regulations, and not chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, should not be accepted by pure devotees. I heard some song, some devotees making up some song. Prabhupada said, I didn't have time to find the quote, but he explained that we simply cannot make up prayers and sing prayers. One should be authorized to do so. One should be a pure devotee to express devotional sentiment. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't hear anything unless it was authorized, unless it was certified by Surup Damodar. Bhagavati Paragiya Bhagavati Stani. You want to understand Bhagavatam, then you have to hear from Bhagavat, from pure devotee. So one devotee came and he made a proposition that I want Mahaprabhu to hear this play. He wrote a play. But in the play, he likened Lord Chaitanya as the dancing Brahman and Lord Jagannath as the fixed Brahman, the wood Brahman. In other words, he distinguished between Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya. Swarup Damodar immediately rejected it because it's Avaishnava. It's not our Siddhanta. It's not approved by our acharyas. We have a Siddhanta, we have a Guru Parampara. And if it's outside of the conclusions, the Siddhantic conclusions of our Parampara, we reject. We're not beggars that we have to go around begging from any other person outside of our Parampara to hear and understand Vaishnava Siddhanta. Everything is there in Prabhupada's books. So we should be very convinced of that and chaste to the instructions of the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada. The last couple sentences in the purport are also significant. Quote, The words Sattvata Shastra Vigraham indicate that the Satchit Ananda, body of the Lord, can never be accepted to be made of Maya. Who says they're made of Maya? This is the Mayavad contingent. The Mayavad is saying that the Supreme Lord's body is composed of matter. It's a product of Sattva Gun. Rama, Krishna, Narayan, Shiva, all the devatas, their body is Maya. It's made of material matter, dead, dull material matter. And Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, Shivaham, that Brahman is everything, that Lord is Brahman, I am also the Lord. They have many, many misconceptions. Top of the list is they think Krishna is Maya. Krishna is a manifestation of Maya. But Chaitanya, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Avyaktam Vyaktam Apanam Manyate Mam Abudaya Param Bhava Majanato Mamabhuta Maheshwaram. Krishna said people who think like this are stupid. Abudha. If you have no intelligence, what does that mean? It means you're stupid. Krishna says in blunt, naked words, Abudaya. Avyaktam Vyaktam Apanam. This means if someone thinks that from the Avyakt, from the Brahman effulgence, that Vyakt, that Krishna, Rama, Narayan are manifest from the impersonal void, they're abudaya, foolish. Parambhava majanato, they don't know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. Mama Bhamabhuta Maheshram, they don't understand my supreme dominion over all that be. This is Lord's words himself in Bhagavad Gita. So we stick to that. Let them say whatever they want to say. Any foolish thing they want to manufacture. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Param Pavitam Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shastratam Divyam Adideva Majam Vibhum, Ahustam Rishaya Sarve Devashi Narada Sata, Asita Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Brivishime. Arjuna said, Krishna, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original, eternal, Supreme Lord. And everyone agrees. Ayustam Rishaya Sarve, all the rishis say, Devala, Asita, Vyasa. They all say the same thing, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original Lord, God himself. Well, this is just Arjuna's butter polishing Krishna. He's a family member after all, and he just artificially praising Krishna. No. Asita Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Bhavishimi, and you yourself were saying that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Matakparatanam nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya mayi sarvamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. In everything there's no truth. Krishna says there's no truth higher than me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung in a thread. It says me, mataha. It says all these are personal pronouns. Everything rests on me. I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's no higher truth. So the Mayavadis say the highest truth. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Krishna comes from Brahma. No, Brahma comes from Krishna. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Amritasya vyavasya shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kandikantacha. The Krishna said, Brahman rests on me. I am the source of Brahman. I'm the source of everything. Aham sarvasya bhavavo. So these foolish people think Krishna has a body made of matter. He's a product of sattva gun. This is foolish idea, unsupported in Shastra. So these are very nice verses from Srimad Bhagvatam. Many things we can learn today. Hopefully it says something that is helpful to you and inspiring to you in your spiritual life, or process of Krishna consciousness. Does anyone have any comment or question? We're out of time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I think Prabhuji has left. So we can end the meeting here.